The movie 300 is one of the most famous historical action films ever made. It shows King Leonidas and his 300 Spartans holding a narrow pass against a massive Persian army. The visuals are stunning, the heroes are superhuman, the villains are monsters, but how much of that story is real? What actually happened at the Battle of Thermopylae? Today, we will separate the Hollywood myth from the historical facts. The truth is just as compelling as the fiction, but in a very different way. First, let's talk about the number of soldiers. This is the biggest myth. The movie shows only 300 Spartans. That is partly true. There were 300 Spartan hoplites. They're elite heavy infantry. But they were not alone. King Leonidas knew 300 men could not hold the pass. He brought support troops. More importantly, he was joined by thousands of soldiers from other Greek city-states. Historical records mention around 7,000 Greek defenders at the start of the battle. Key allies included soldiers from Thespia, Thebes, and Corinth. So, it was not 300 versus a million. It was about 7,000 Greeks against a Persian force that was huge, but not a million. Modern historians estimate the Persian army, led by King Xerxes, was likely between 100,000 and 300,000 men, still a massive imbalance. But not the endless sea of people shown in the movie. Now, let's talk about the soldiers themselves. In 300, the Spartans look like superhuman warriors with perfect muscles. They fight in just loincloths and capes. The real Spartan hoplite was a professional soldier, but he wore heavy armor. A typical Spartan wore a bronze helmet, a breastplate, and greaves to protect his legs. He carried a large round shield, a long spear, and a short sword. They fought in a tight formation called a phalanx. They did not perform acrobatic flips and spins. Their strength was in unity and discipline. Standing shoulder to shoulder with their shields locked, the Persians in the movie are shown as monsters, orcs, and giants. The real Persian army was a professional force. It included the famous immortals, an elite royal guard of 10,000 men. They were skilled and well-equipped. They were not mystical creatures. The movie made the Persians look inhuman to make the Spartans look more heroic. But history does not need that. The courage of the Greeks is clear against a real, powerful enemy. What about the location? The movie shows a very narrow, wall-like pass. The real place is called Thermopylae, which means hot gates because of nearby hot springs. The pass was indeed narrow between the mountains and the sea. This was why the Greeks chose it. Their smaller numbers could work better in a tight space, but the geography was not exactly like the movie. Over 2,500 years, the coastline has changed. Back then, the pass was wider in some areas and narrower in others. There was also a secret mountain trail. A local Greek trader showed this trail to the Persians. This allowed the Persians to surround the Greeks. The movie includes this betrayal, which is correct. Now, the strategy and the fight. Leonidas's goal was never to win the whole war at the pass. It was to delay the massive Persian invasion, to buy time for the main Greek armies to prepare and for the Athenian navy to get ready. For 2 full days, the Greeks held the line. They used the terrain perfectly. They rotated their frontline fighters. They inflicted terrible casualties on the Persians. The Spartans were the core of the defense, but all the Greeks fought bravely. On the 3rd day, the Persians used the mountain trail to get behind the Greeks. Leonidas learned he was surrounded. He knew the position was lost. He dismissed most of the Greek army to save them. But he stayed. Who stayed with him? His 300 Spartans. Of course, but also about 700 soldiers from Thespia, and maybe 400 from Thebes. They chose to make a last stand. They fought to the death to cover the retreat of the others. This sacrifice is the true legacy of Thermopylae. It was a coordinated, strategic sacrifice, not just a wild brawl. Finally, let's look at King Leonidas. In the movie, he is a defiant, shouting warrior king. He is a powerful leader. The real Leonidas was also a brave king and a skilled military leader. He was about 60 years old at the time of the battle. He was a seasoned commander. His decision to stay and die was a military and political choice. It sent a powerful message to all of Greece: Sparta would never surrender. It inspired the Greek city-states to unite and fight harder. The myth of his last stand became more powerful than any victory. So, what is the final truth? The Battle of Thermopylae was a military defeat for the Greeks. The Persians won the pass and moved forward. But it was a massive moral and propaganda victory for Greece. The sacrifice of Leonidas and his men showed that the Persian army could be resisted. It proved that courage and discipline could stand against overwhelming numbers. It united the Greek cities. A few months later, the Greeks would defeat the Persian navy at Salamis and the army at Plataea. The delay at Thermopylae helped make those victories possible. The movie 300 is a fantastic, stylized myth. It is a great story about freedom and sacrifice. But the real history is about strategy, alliance, and the complex reasons men choose to fight and die. The real story is not about 300 superheroes. It is about 300 Spartans and thousands of other Greeks who stood together. That is a fact more powerful than any Hollywood fiction.